Welcome to the Q&A for Silent River at the 10th Annual Seattle Asian American Film Festival. My name is Vanessa Au, and I'm the co-founder of the Seattle Asian American Film Festival. And today I'm joined by the cast and crew of Silent River. So I want to introduce everybody on this panel, and they're going to actually introduce themselves. We'll start with Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Chen Lee. I'm the writer, director, producer of Silent River.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Sang. I play Greta and Julie in Silent River, and also I was the costume designer.
And Norbert.
Hey, everybody. My name is Norbert Che. I was the cinematographer on Silent River.
And of course, West.
Hi there. My name is Wes Liang. Thanks for having me. I'm an actor on Silent River and one of the producers also.
Thank you so much for coming here. I'm really excited to have you here with us so we can ask some questions. So the first question I have for you all, actually this one's for Chris. What inspired the creation of Silent River?
Well, you know, Vanessa, I've been working in this space as an Asian American filmmaker for quite a number of years. And like a lot of people on our team, I've had various projects in development I would like to launch and, you know, make movies and stuff. But there was a time about 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago or so where it was just really, you know, it's always as an independent filmmaker, it's always like kind of an uphill climb trying to get any project going. So about 2-3 years ago, you know, I was just really determined to make a film like immediately by any means necessary. And Wes Liang and I, who's one of our lead actors as well as a producer on the project, we kind of would talk shop about projects, films that excited us, directors that excited us, the kinds of movies that we wanted to make. We both have several films under our belt, but what would we do next? And if we could do anything we wanted. And it just kind of got to that point where I was like, you know, I'm tired of asking for permission to make movies because I've been making films for such a long time. I know all aspects of development, production, and post. Why not just do it? Especially because the prohibitive costs traditionally of filmmaking has come down so low right now with the advancements of technology, right? And so we kind of basically reverse engineered the making of a film by, okay, here's our limited resources, here's what we can do, we know what we can't do, let's work backwards from there and figure out how to make a movie that we can do today. You know, and because it was completely independent, I really wanted to make a film that was like very personal, unique, where we could all share our voices as a collective. And budget or no budget, no one else on the planet could have made this film that we made together, you know?
Nice. The narrative of the story, it is really out there and was really quite a mind bender. What kind of inspired the story?
Yeah, at face value, it's pretty simple. Without giving away spoilers, it's about a young man who checks into a remote hotel on his way to meet with his ex to try to reconcile. While he's at the hotel, he meets another guest played by Amy, and these other characters appear later on in the story as well. And he starts to get very involved with her personal history and her sort of objectives, you know? But it's meant to be kind of a mind-bending film about mortality. And it's also, we sort of take this tract of deploying a unique filmic vocabulary that is really greatly rooted in all of our sort of influences. You know, Norbert's the director of photography. We talked extensively and we created visual look boards or visual boards of different photographers and filmmakers and films and art pieces to develop that language, you know, and because the alternative was, oh, well, okay, we can make this low budget movie. Let's try to make like a low end Coen Brothers film or something. And of course, the Coen Brothers are absolute masters and greatly admired. But then we thought, well, why not just do something that totally stands out from the crowd that we could do that is unique to our voices as Asian American content creators, you know? So some of I mean, I went into films because I saw David Lynch's Blue Velvet, and that just like blew my mind, and it opened this whole new universe to me of creativity and authorship. And then right before we started filming Silent River, I saw Zulawski's movie Possession that he had done in Germany with Isabelle Adjani back in the early 80s. And that movie like completely blew my mind and really reinforced the fact that there are no actual roles. Like we feel like there's so many roles in cinema and filmmaking and as being like labeled as Asian American filmmakers and all this kind of stuff. But when you see movies like that, it really shows like as long as you're passionate and you're cohesive in the world that you're building, like anything goes. You just have to be committed to your world, you know? So
Absolutely. I really have to ask, what is behind the name of the film?
yeah, that's a tricky one. It's a good question, Vanessa. What is behind the name of the film? Well, okay, so there are parallels with the metaphors that we're deploying in the film and the mythology. There's like some Greek mythology going on as sort of like a structural kind of framework, but also because we went through a whole gamut of possible titles and everything, and really like it felt the mood and temperament of it felt correct. It felt like it fit the film. There's definitely the sense of like the flow of life, the passage of time, and all that kind of stuff. But really, also the name seemed to be an appropriate badge for the film, and in some way that was important. And it sort of exemplifies how following our instincts with this movie was a part of our whole creative process. Like we had to make that judgment call of like, yes, this fits, this doesn't fit, and that's kind of where the title comes from.
So a question I have for each of you, and I'm going to start, I think, with with Norbert, and then we'll move on to Amy. What was the biggest challenge for each of you in making this film from your point of view and from the role that you were involved in?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Vanessa. I think on Silent River, I would say time. I think just with the limited things we had, we were maximizing as much as possible with them. It's just time was just something we would run out with every day. I mean, we would land on the feet running, on the ground running every day, every morning, and then would still be running at the end when we would wrap every night. And kind of just look at things and trying to figure out, okay, what's ways we could maximize our time tomorrow. So, the first few days we're just reorienting ourselves to the process. And it's always, in every film, it's always the first few days are just everybody getting used to working with each other. And I think midway through, like a band, we started getting into a groove. And that's when we understood how to just work the best. Like we started combining scenes or getting sequences and figuring out transitions within scenes and shots, for instance, just to squeeze as much as possible in the 10 to 12 hours a day that we're filming.
That was my next question, was how many hours a day was it? That's a pretty long day. And how long did it take to shoot the whole thing?
I'll let Chris answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in my first film, we basically made our day, meaning that we made it within our allotted schedule. We made our day every single day, except for I think one time. On this film, Silent River, we were basically falling behind every single day.
Oh no.
It was, but I have to say, I think a lot of it was because of our ambition, the level of execution that we were going for, you know, and it's not like we didn't have a game plan. The script is only 67 pages, right? Like the template length of the script is at least 100 to 120 pages, but we knew going into it that our approach was going to be such that the film would be longer than the page count. And the script is only 67 pages. I think we cut out at least 7 pages during the filming of the movie.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so we had to be like really razor focused, and it was really, really hard. I mean, everybody on the cast and crew was wearing 2 or 3 or more hats during production. And we probably needed double the amount of schedule time that we actually gave ourselves to shoot the film. So I don't even know what the original question was anymore, because that was kind of the experience in a nutshell. It was very intense. It was very, very intense. Yeah.
That is intense. That's a really long day to keep doing back to back like that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Moving on to Amy, what was the biggest challenge for you? Because that was, you know, some interesting characters that you had to play.
Yeah, I think the greatest challenge for me was doing 2 roles, not only 2 roles in acting, but also doing costume design for Silent River. And I think I was way over my head when I accepted that from Chris. I didn't realize how much work it would be to prep the costumes and also prep for my role, you know. Every day I felt like I was just trying to juggle, like separating, okay, the costume designer hat and then the, you know, actor hat, and getting back into the story. But in some ways, getting to know the script, because when I was approaching the script as a costume designer, I had to make sure I knew every single role really in depth. So I think that in some ways helped me understand the story and all the characters more, and how my role as an actor would relate to them. So in some ways, it also helped me. So I don't think there was any negative to it. It was just a lot of work, you know? Yeah.
It's a lot of hats to wear and a really intense characters to play at the same time. Wes, how about you? What were some of the challenges for you?
Oh man. You know, thinking back now, I really just have a lot of fond memories of the experience. But putting myself back in time, wearing the hat of being one of the producers and collaborator for the project. So you kind of know where the bodies are buried. And I think in some ways that's not great. You know, I had to subtract those things from my mind, but I knew how spent we were budget wise. I knew how behind we were. You know, every part of the shots, I knew that we were running behind. So that was messing with my mind a little bit. I had to walk away from set sometimes to just to like, okay, focus, do my role. But you know, I think time, like Norbert said, is a big thing. Time, and when you don't have the time, you compensate by having the crew. So we didn't have the time, we didn't have the crew, we didn't have the budget. So it took a lot of creativity, it took a lot of teamwork, and we all really, I mean, we all had our moments, but we had a rhythm from day one. Because we were behind from day one, we had a rhythm of having a kind of a post-mortem conversation after every single night.
Oh, wow.
And then the next day going into it, and the next day there would be another post-mortem conversation. And that kind of helped us get back on track. But you know, I think I've been with a project before production, and so I've been with it after production. So it's all kind of blending in my mind. But sure, shooting an indie film with no budget and no crew is tough.
Did you know each other before, or did anybody kind of meet on, you know, doing this project?
Yeah, the four of us, I mean, we all knew each other in some way. I mean, I think I met Norbert through this project. And then different people through the different roles, there were, it was very familial, whoever was involved, it was almost always by 1 degree separation that it was through referral and things like that. So it was a very familial kind of a set.
Yeah,
Okay.
and actually, one of our co-leads, Max Fogno, and I had worked together before, and and Wes and Amy brought in several people. So, a project like this, we wanted to really identify those who were willing to work out of passion. That was very important. It was the only way that this could have happened. I think, Vanessa, you alluded to, were there any good times like during?
Yeah, I want to hear about the great moments too, not just the challenges. What was memorable?
So that is actually a really great memory. I mean, a lot of the times we were really stressed out. Like going into it, there was this fantasy that after each day of filming, that we would gather together into the main production office and watch movies together. That never happened. That never happened. Like there were a couple times like on the weekends of the shoot that we watched Game of Thrones together, I guess. But for the most part, at the end of the shoot, everybody just went straight to their hotel room, because you were exhausted. Everyone was really exhausted and stressed out. But there was, towards the end of the filming, there's a scene that is a really big set piece in our movie, actually, and without giving away any spoilers, the way Norbert had set up the shot, it was a continuous, like 5+ minute choreographed shot, right? And all of our cast and crew worked together to design this. But it starts out in one room where it's nighttime, and then there's like this crazy dolly move, and it goes into a daytime room, and then it keeps going. The actors keep going. Nothing is interrupted ever, and then we dolly back to the nighttime room from the daytime room. And while that's happening, there's all the stuff occurring behind camera. Like literally, Max, one of the other actors, once his character is off camera, he hustles to one of the beds and he has to move the bed to make room for the camera dolly. But I guess what I'm getting at is, even though that was stressful, it was crazy, chaotic, I could really feel that we were all having a really great time doing it. Like it was very sort of creatively satisfying, and that's where we all sort of coalesced in terms of our teamwork and communication and making that group effort. And it's kind of one of the reasons why you make movies, is to experience those kinds of moments.
And also I want to add, I think with a lot of projects of passion, if I were to explain to the cast and crew that this is what's going to have to happen, we're going to have this little sleep and this little money, nobody's going to jump on board. But, when you don't know what's ahead and you're just kind of led by what's in your heart, you kind of go through all of it, and so it's a lot of fun to go through it. But thinking back, it's like, oh, it's a different perspective thinking back, right? Looking ahead. So, yeah.
Amy, what are some of your favorite moments?
There's so many. Every day was an adventure, but two stick out in my mind. The one that Chris was just talking about, and without giving away anything, it just felt like this theater experience. And I've never done theater, but it just felt like we were just, we had to maneuver around. There was so many obstacles, but we were all on adrenaline, I think, and we just pushed through that. It's like this crazy one dolly shot thing, and I think we only did like a few takes, but it was just, everybody was just in the zone. And what, 9 takes? Okay, Chris knows.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like Olympics or something on that part. And then there was one where I mean, can I talk about certain scenes, Chris?
Yeah, talk it. Talk
Yeah,
it.
of course.
I think everyone's seen the film at the end of it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's the hallway scene.
Maybe it's a spoiler alert. I don't know what Amy's going to say, but maybe it's a spoiler alert just in case. So, yeah.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
It was like this hallway scene towards the end of the movie. And I just remember, I think from all the stress and pressure of the shoot, I don't know why, but I couldn't stop laughing. And I had to like moments during the scene, I just kept on turning away and just laughing. And then there was like, but everybody was just, the AC Miko, he kind of made it a joke. He did a playback of the scene on his phone, along with some music that was totally inappropriate to the scene. And it just made me like, I just could not stop my giggles. I just like could not suppress my giggles. And maybe you could probably catch me like turning away in one of the parts. And that's probably when I just couldn't stop laughing.
Now I gotta go back and look for that scene.
So,
Norbert, what was something really memorable for you about making this film?
A lot of my favorite moments when making movies is kind of the happy accidents that happen that, you weren't planning and they just happened with the chemistry on set, with the crew together, and just being very improvisational. And there's two scenes that I really enjoyed, and one of them is the dance scene with P2 and Amy's character, where it on script it's very brief. It's maybe like 4 or 5 lines, but it really, with kind of Wes's acting and Amy on that moment, it just really came to life. Like on script, you could have just read over it and then boom. But I think on the screen, the moment it hits you, you just kind of see this realization for Wes's character on that moment, and that just jumped out of the page for me. And then there's like another one, and it's a very simple scene towards the end, and spoilers everywhere, but it's a shot of West running in slow motion towards the camera with these crazy windmills where we're like nearby where we're shooting.
Mhm.
And that was just, it was at the end of a day where it was raining. So we were, for half of that entire day, we had a pop-up on top of the cast and crew, and we were freezing and it was windy. And then for that brief moment towards the end of the day when we were about to shoot, it had stopped raining, the clouds kind of cleared up, and it was that magic hour that you just get that hint of just the clouds, the sky, and everything looked perfect at that moment.
Sounds really great. Chris, did you have something you wanted to comment on back there?
I don't know. I was just listening to Norbert's story and kind of thinking about my recollections of that. And I wish we were able to afford like a behind the scenes videographer, photographer. We do have some assets like that, but a lot of this stuff just lives in our memories, because that particular day that Norbert just talked about, it was a really beautiful, stunning shot that he captured with this very wide frame of West running in golden hour. But really leading up to that, it was freezing cold. I remember we had this pop-up tent, and our other producer, Bob Cho, had to play human sandbag to basically hold it from blowing away. It was literally like all these gale force winds. I mean, it's where they set up windmills. So obviously the geography was
Windy place.
yeah, it was. So yeah, there are a lot of memories like that of just these totally absurd, kind of crazy moments of, wow, like we're making a movie and I can't believe all this stuff is happening, So that's what's on my mind when Norbert tells that story.
I wish there was a documentary crew following every film so we can see the behind the scenes and see how these things come together. That would be so cool. I guess this will be kind of a spoiler alert too, but I wanted to ask Chris, is there a right way to read this film? Right. For me, I was kind of trying to figure out, what's real, what's a dream, what's a metaphor for Elliot's life. How did you hope or think the audience was going to read it?
The approach to, the text and the vocabulary of the film was to create our own rules in the world building and to be consistent about them, to not violate them in some egregious way. And it was also to trust our instincts and follow our intuition. Like, this fits the movie, this doesn't, but also on a consistent basis to play along in that way. Ultimately, we realize any film, once you hand it over to the audience to experience, like, they're going to bring their own view on reality and life and storytelling and their own kind of history into the experiencing the film, and you kind of have to just hand it over to them. So I think, our job was to show that, like, we were very rigorous in the telling of the story, that we it's not like kitchen sink, anything goes, right? It's like we really held ourselves accountable to how, this world is being created, etc. But then, yes, absolutely, once the audience watches the film, as long as they're excited enough to engage in it, to be like, oh, hey, I'm into this, I'm digging this, I feel what's happening, and this is my interpretation, then that's all power to them. That's what we want. We want the viewer to come up with to have their imagination inspired and to come up with their own interpretation.
Yeah, and I think the mood created in the film and just the chemistry of the actors really helped to make that come across. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to ask each of you also, as we wrap up here, what projects are you working on now, and how can we find out about them online? I guess I'll start. How about this time with West? Sorry.
Oh wow! I'm like a lot of actors, waiting for the next gig right now, and so it's a constant hustle of meetings and auditioning and things like that. I have a big part of my heart is devoted to developing content. But developing content takes so much time, takes so much out of you, that I really have to, swing back and forth between the, hired gun actor, and I get a lot of love out of that. That's probably the closest to my heart. And then when I get too much of that, I swing back the other way. So it's a constant kind of back and forth. So I'm developing a few different projects in various different stages. And whether it's collaborating or whether it's finding money, but right now what I'm actively doing a lot of is mostly just TV right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, working on TV. And obviously, we are still early in the festival circuit of Silent River, and so right now this is probably the biggest baby that we got to take care of. And I gotta say, I'm really happy that we're able to visit the Seattle Asian American Film Festival. It's too bad because of the pandemic we can't be there, but I'm really proud of it because I think obviously a lot of the people behind the scenes is Asian American for this project, but I do think that Chris and I were trying to push this project into a corner of Asian American cinema where the content makers are Asian American, but sometimes the issues that they're dealing with is not necessarily identity centric.
Right.
And for better or worse, that is still a kind of an uncharted corner in the kind of the space. So we're really excited that we get to engage with Asian American audiences and hopefully they enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we find you on social media to follow what?
Yeah, I'm on social medias, Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but I'm there.
Nice. How about you, Amy? What kind of stuff can we look forward to from you, and how can we find you online?
So I am currently in the process of developing a screenplay I wrote called Lady Luck, and I hope to direct and act in it. So for more info on that coming up, you could follow me on Instagram, the Amy Sang, or Facebook. I'm on those 2 platforms.
Great, thank you so much. And Norbert, how about you?
I am also a documentary filmmaker, so currently in the process of editing some footage of a project called Preserves, and it's a new take on food documentaries in which it really wants to focus on the labor and kind of the farming and agricultural part of it, and it takes place in Taiwan. So pandemic has made it really tough to go back into production, so I'm hoping to go return sometime this year once the surge simmers down, and kind of work on that for the rest of the year on the side of just prepping for other narrative and documentary shoots as a DP.
That's exciting. Is there somewhere online that we can follow along with your project?
Yeah, you could go to my website, norbertshade.com, or my IG is photos by Norb, and I'm also on Twitter as Norb, N-O-R-B.
Awesome, thank you. And Chris, what's going on with you, and how can we find out about your projects?
Yeah, so it's been like 15 plus years since my last feature film. This is my 3rd feature. Arguably, there's a couple of other long form projects I've made, but like everyone here, even though it may seem like, well, Chris, what the heck have you been doing? I mean, I'm constantly working on my craft. My primary occupation has been working as an editor, which is at least a 3rd level of storytelling. So I'm always at the grindstone working and developing. I hope to make another movie. There's some things I have in development in the works, some things that our team here has talked about together, et cetera, as well. But right now, we have a lot of duty to service Silent River, and we're really excited about introducing it at the Seattle Asian American Film Festival. Like Wes mentioned, this may be somewhat of a peculiar film in terms of being identified as a film from Asian American content creators. We're really trying to appeal to film lovers and cinema lovers and people who want engaging, challenging work from the arts. And we know that there are many others like us in the Asian American and beyond community that are looking for films like these that are hungry for this kind of content. And if you want to keep tracking the project and to see what's next and where we're screening and where it's going to be available, please come to our website, which is at silentrivermovie.com.
Perfect, great. Well, I want to thank you all again for taking the time to join us. And for our audience, please be sure to check out the other great programs playing at SAAFF right now. They're available virtually for March 3rd to 13th, 2022. And you can find those at bit.ly/SAAFF 2022 ! Thanks again, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Vanessa.
Thank you.